we are going to discuss the Melbourne Footy Club, who are at a crossroads position. I liken them to Carlton in the sense that Carlton, we've been discussing with the Kerno move and Silvani, the wheels felt like they were falling off a little bit at the back end of a relatively successful period. It is even more pronounced at Melbourne, who are coming out of a premiership window. And, I think probably held on to the belief that they could win something or at least stay competitive with this current group for a little while there. Simon Goodwin was very vocal about that. That has been flipped on its head with the likely exits of Christian Petracca, Clayton Oliver, and Stephen May also told it to shop himself around. Stephen King has come in as the new coach. I wouldn't isolate it all to Stephen King being the guy that's driving this new thing. I think this would probably been in the works for a little while, but naturally he's going to spearhead that. First of all, I suppose, do you think it was naive of Melbourne to try and reinvigorate around this group of Petracca, Oliver, and Max Gawn, who's still a really good player? And try and keep the party going for a little bit longer. What are your views on that?
I didn't think they were too naive given that they were a kick away from a prelim the season before 2024. But then, given all the stuff that happened with Clayton Oliver at the start of last year, they sort of wanted to give it another crack, and it didn't really work out. They lost a lot of games by close margins. But I think if you hold on to that, it's a pretty slippery slope. So I think it's a good time for them to keep the ball rolling.
Oh, I think it was a pretty clear to see, at least by the end of the 2023 season, that this was going in the wrong direction. I think most people that were discussing Melbourne at that time were bringing up these concerns. And I think it was one of the bigger head in the sand moments that we've seen from a club where they were just so dogmatic in they had the best team. We saw those moments like Stephen May get up at the best and fairest when they lost to Collingwood and say we fucking should have beaten these guys. We're way better than them. Mm-hmm. They just had that dogmatic approach to the entire thing and kind of this unwavering belief that they had better players and they were better than everyone and it was just going to turn around. And I think it was pretty clear to see. I'm sort of the opposite to you, Drew. I thought it was pretty clear to see that
I think they were one kick away from a prelim. So I can see why they thought that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they kicked themselves out of that game as well.
Their game style was so clearly uncompetitive with the best sides though at the same time. I get it from the perspective of results driven. They were a kick away from a that's a Carlton game, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't working, and you could just sort of see these problems slowly building up, and they were. Off the field, it was embarrassing. Some of the things that they came out and said, the Brad Green at the BNF, the midfield's going to be Oliver, Viney, and Petracca, that kind of stuff. Yeah. It was just so cringe. I don't know.
These things look way stupider when they don't come off though, and they look amazing.
But I think there are a lot of people saying this at the time as well.
Yeah.
I don't think this is retrospective.
People laughed at Brendan Gale saying he was going to win 3 premierships with Richmond.
Yeah.
That could be perceived as arrogant, if that had not come off. It's ultimately what you do next that makes it look good or stupid, right?
Correct.
I suppose my view is, I said this maybe earlier in the stream or off air, I can't remember, but as a fan of a club that did this thing, where we also try to prolong a premiership window and stay in the window, recruit Tim Kelly, amongst other things, I am actually grateful that my club had another swing while we thought we had the opportunity. And I'll tell you why. You look at, it's becoming a buzzword, I always reference Geelong. But when there are clubs in the AFL that can belie what you would think is normal list management principles, that you've got to go up and you've got to go down and you've got to go up and you've got to go down. Geelong have never done that. So as an Eagles fan looking at Geelong from across the country, I'm I believe that's what West Coast tried to emulate. Why wouldn't you try and emulate that? The difference is you've got to be the best. You've got to be the best at recruiting. You've got to be the best at coaching and formulating a game plan, game plan around the role players that you have. I think Geelong do that so well. So when you're Melbourne and you have Gawn, Oliver, Petracca, and May and Lever and etc., it would have been an incredibly brave call too early to just go, nah, let's rebuild. If West Coast had rebuilt in 2019, I would have been filthy. You know what I mean? So that's just my perspective on their decision to kick around on it any longer. But we're well and truly at the point where they're making moves to transition the list.
I guess the difference that I would sort of bring up there between like using the Geelong thing as a model, like their culture's just been so consistently good
Yeah, no
for
doubt.
such a long time.
No doubt.
I think there are shades where you can see in that Melbourne as a club being at least in recent times. Like I know they had their successful periods like a long time ago, but they've been a pretty unsuccessful club for quite a long time. And there were shades of that coming through in like after that 2021 flag. You could sort of see it, and then the cultural stuff was pretty clear. So as much as I agree with you in like they had the success there and they wanted to go again, but there were more signs there of it cracking apart than say with a Geelong or something like that.
For sure.
And even West Coast.
I'll contrast them to West Coast very clearly here because the difference between West Coast had nothing underneath. To Melbourne's credit, they have been recruiting in a much different way to what West Coast did, and therefore they're not going to fall into the same hole by any stretch, whilst we acknowledge...
Cats, you're saying?
No, I'm talking about Melbourne.
I do.
Sorry,
Okay.
Melbourne are not at all in the position that West Coast are in and will not be because of what they've been doing over the last few years and developed a pretty strong core. Like that, last year they traded for a second first round pick. They did the same thing in 23. Caleb Windsor? Is he 23?
Yeah, they traded up.
So Windsor and Tholstrup and generally have been hitting and been present in first rounds of drafts over a number of years and have actually accumulated a decent young core. And you can go back to 2019 where Cozzy Pickett and Trent Rivers were also picked up. They also picked up Luke Jackson that year, who then they were able to turn into other players.
Yep.
But that became Caleb Windsor.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I'll just summarise who I think their young core is that I think is actually in not a bad spot for a team that are just sort of accepting that the rebuild is happening. Cozzy Pickett, Trent Rivers, I would still say are part of their young core. They're both 24 and under, or 24 rather. Harvey Langford, Caleb Windsor, Xavier Lindsay, Colton Tholstrup, Jake Bowie, Daniel Turner now, Jacob Van Rooyen, and perhaps a Jefferson who was a first-round pick. I know he hasn't cracked into the side, but still possibly part of their plans.
Your list is exactly the same as mine, except I didn't have Jefferson on that list.
That one's debatable.
I think he's quite clearly failed at this point. I think Jake Bowie goes onto that list, though. I don't know if
I had Bowie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. That's the part that I totally agree. In the background, they've recruited really well.
Absolutely.
And that's going to hold them. And if you look at the players that they're looking to clear out, there's still quite a lot of leaders there, right? Max Gawn, Jack Viney, Ed Langdon, Melksham, Salem, Lever, and probably even Fritsch if Lever does hang around, that is. So they've got some quality there in the older players.
Absolutely. So there's no like real concern about the arse dropping out of this list when you consider Gawn, Lever, Viney, Salem, Fritsch, Melksham, Langdon, and even like a McAdam who's still like a senior player there. Yep. There's still a lot of experience there. And I had a look at the players who are actually legitimately in their prime at Melbourne. and then this is sort of like, when you look at the size of the list that's in their prime, indicates like how serious are they about winning something now, in my opinion. And the three players I picked up were Cade Chandler, Harrison Petty, and Tom Sparrow. They're all 25. As far as players in their prime go, sure, that's not great. You could say Cozzy Pickett. He's kind of in the young core and the prime because
you're classifying 25 as the cutoff there.
No, it was 23 to 28 was roughly the bracket.
Oh, okay.
And all the other players that I said were young core were younger than that, and the retained leaders are older than that.
Yep.
Cozzy Pickett's probably a little bit of young core and in his prime. You'd imagine he probably has hit his prime.
Yep.
I'd say Trent Rivers is possibly approaching his prime, but probably hasn't actually hit his prime. I think
he hasn't had the role more so than anything.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So in summary, there's a huge portion of the list there that are now quite young, and therefore we should discuss how they go about this offseason in light of Clayton Oliver, Christian Petracca, Stephen May, and now Judd McVee leaving as well as Charlie Spargo. There's 5 exits there. How do you think they go about this offseason?
Oh, yeah, we've just seen that Flanders has nominated St Kilda as well, so they've brought in Mychek, which is that key forward position need. They're going to chase hard for Bailey Humphrey in that Petracca deal, you'd think. But yeah, if they fail to land Humphreys, it's just going to be a lot of trade sort of assets that they're going to hold, really, isn't it? What do you think they could get in?
Well, it's difficult really to pinpoint. I almost think with the guys that are walking out the door, they'd probably almost be better off going back to the draft, given what's on the table now. I think the Flanders one would have worked really well for them. Bailey Humphrey, as I said, he works for anyone. So if you can get your hands on him, you probably overpay if you have to. to get a player like that.
My check, we said earlier, it flies in the face a little bit about this push towards youth because of his age. And I'm not sure exactly how old he was, like 32 to 33, I reckon.
2 years of good footy left.
Yeah. So it's an interesting move here where they're getting an experienced player in and another avenue to goal without being part of the future at all. This is a short-term move to improve in the here and now, but clearly the focus on the list has gone to that under 25 group.
I think the My Check one is different though. It's the like it's bringing in a guy that offers a different perspective because he's come from another club. If you pinpoint the one area of the Melbourne team that hasn't worked over the last 3 to 4 years, it's the key forwards. That has just been an absolute disaster for them consistently. So it's like it's bringing somebody else in, and I think like a term that you see a lot in soccer is like the players always talk about refreshing the list, right? Refreshing the squad so that it puts pressure on guys and stuff like that. And I think Mychek's a good one for that. Like he's someone that comes in, he's going to push somebody out on some level, and they're probably looking at it like he can help develop a Van Rooyen, potentially a Jefferson, even though I just wrote him off a moment ago.
Do you think it's a big blow that Judd McVee has requested a trade?
Yes, because I would have put him in the upper end of that.
Absolutely.
Quality coming through. So yeah, that's not ideal.
It's also frustrating when you just like develop a player from. He was a rookie draft pick. I think he was like the last pick of the rookie draft in 21 or 22.
Real bonus gun.
Yeah, just like one of those players that we speak about Hawthorn and Geelong sort of nailing, like those diamonds in the rough, if you will. Yeah, absolutely runs through the VFL.
Yeah.
Has massive preseason, been a best 22 player ever since, and then just goes, I'm going to go play for
and
the best
then
club
you
in the
end up
AFL.
landing. You get like a speculative draft pick in a poor draft.
Yeah.
It's not ideal at all. How much do you think though the stuff that's been going on in recent times, like a player like that leaving, how much do you think that affects it? We know Cozzy Pickett's attempted to leave.
Yeah. Could still be on the cards.
Could still be on the cards.
That's
for
probably
Pickett.
the difference between this looking diabolical and not is Cozzy Pickett. Like
Yeah,
if he had left,
100%.
Considering Fremantle probably wouldn't have been able to generate a top 5 pick for Cozzy Pickett. Like that wouldn't have happened. Well, I'm very unlikely. I think that endorsement of Cozzy Pickett culturally as well is a huge win for them, but also just from a talent and playing point of view. They can sort of maybe not build a team around him, but he's going to be a very critical piece of the team that takes him forward, you'd think. Already a premiership player as well. So I guess just getting back to Petracca and Oliver, what do you think is the best possible outcome here? It's got to be Bailey Humphrey would be the ideal solution, a player who is both represents the future, but is also going to make them better in the short term.
Yeah, for me, Bailey Humphrey, top dog. I'd probably say Flanders would have been a nice, like if they didn't get Humphrey and they got Flanders, that would have been a nice just piece into their midfield coming in and that can play straight away and improve you. And someone that's like Flanders still has development in him, so that's a big miss, I would say. I can't think of many other players like in the off, like ready-made players in the off season that could massively change much for Melbourne. Like I don't think they need to go digging around in the same way that West Coast do for like a Dev Robertson or a Finn McRae. It's sort of unnecessary.
Totally.
So yeah, they would be Bailey Humphrey now.
Yeah.
Get Bailey Humphrey.
Well, what if Bailey Humphrey says, no, I want to play for Carlton? We do need to consider like what the trade looks like. Actually, let's stay on Humphrey for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's Humphrey for Petracca? Like, what does that trade look like? Is that a straight swap? Is it which team gives more?
Melbourne.
You think Melbourne gives more for Bailey Humphrey than Petracca on his own?
Yep. Clearly.
I agree. Like with I can see how you got there, but I would.
Melbourne are going to drive hard for him.
I was just
the working out is good, but the results.
No. I understand why you said that, but I do wonder if in reality Melbourne are going to be a real prick about Petracca, and understandably so. I say prick as though it's a bad thing, but they're going to value him as one of the most valuable assets in the AFL.
But they also said he can leave.
I reckon that would have been a
didn't
mutual decision. Yeah.
Yeah, I know no club ever says like we want you to leave. It's sort of like you can explore your options and we'll see what we can get. But because it is Gold Coast, as much as I did say that's me objectively rating the two players and their age bracket and stuff like that. But Gold Coast, they can give more in draft capital that other clubs can't. It doesn't have the same value to them.
That's true. I suppose I don't know what their academy prospects are like next year, but Melbourne could offer them like a future sweetener, hypothetically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's say Bailey Humphrey's off the table and Sam Flanders is. I suppose Ben Ainsworth, do you think there's any interest from a Melbourne point of view, any value in Ben Ainsworth? You'd have to say probably yes, but you wouldn't get Ben Ainsworth and a top 10 pick. So what do you think is the more valuable asset for Melbourne?
So I actually quite rate Ainsworth. I say that.
He seems like one of those players that always kicks 4 against your club. He's one of those types.
Yeah, probably. I think he's good as that sort of powerful, nuggety, medium forward type. He's not a Humphrey quality with the ball. But what was the question, Jesse?
How seriously should Melbourne consider him as a genuine trade asset for Petracca when they could potentially get pick 7 and maybe some change as well?
Gold Coast, you mean?
From a Melbourne point of view, would you say okay, Gold Coast, you have pick 7, give us that, or would you be okay, now give us Ainsworth and a bit of something else?
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I'd take the pick in this year's draft.
Yeah,
I'd take the pick.
Interesting. Okay, It probably would be more than pick 7 on its own, I think, for Petracca. Yeah. So I reckon there's so many deals. I mean, Gold Coast are going to have 7 and 8. We're calling them what they currently are. Obviously, they get pushed back.
How different though? We spoke about Merritt a couple of weeks ago. Similar age to Petracca, maybe the same age.
He's a year older.
Merritt.
Yep.
Okay. And you were sort of saying that value wise, it was okay for Essendon. How would you differentiate those? You're sort of pushing for more value with Petracca, it seems.
I think Petracca is considerable. Resume up to this point, I know that post-ruptured spleen, he hasn't quite been the same, but quite clearly a better player than Merritt. I'd say at his best, Petracca was was he ever better than Bond?
Petracca? Yeah. I don't think he was better than Bond. I agree with absolutely prime. Petracca better, but that's not actually the conversation.
That's true. It really comes down to the ruptured spleen because I think he was still an elite player right until that happened.
Yeah. He was.
So I think there's still more in it. And
there's definitely a world where Petracca goes to a new environment, new system, and he just thrives. And you get that sort of I don't know, he's not a level of Gary Ablett Jr., but you could put him in the forward line and he kicks 50 goals.
Yeah.
I could see that happening.
100%.
Yeah. Clayton Oliver, is he worth anything at all? We know Stephen May will probably not generate much, but Clayton Oliver.
It's hard to see that other clubs would give up much. It sort of feels like GWS are the only real suitors for him at the moment. But I think the biggest incentive for Melbourne would be take this bloke's salary off our hands because he's one of the highest paid or up there. He's getting, a lot of money.
But there's another lever they could pull, Jake. No, but there's another angle to this is if they offer to pay half of it, then they can get a better trade outcome for Oliver.
Yeah.
So with their salary cap in the position it is, Melbourne I don't think are too worried about paying salary if it generates a better deal for Oliver. So that would be the way that I'd advise them to play it. But I still don't think you're getting in much in the top 30 of this year's draft.
The question that I ask myself there is if you remove the cultural baggage of Clayton Oliver, which seems to be there, that's speculation, but even just on his current level as an AFL player, where would you sit him?
His current level?
Yeah.
What sort of
what caliber
grade?
Is he?
Yeah. Man, in his prime, he was a freak.
Yeah.
But I said it before, watching him come out of the front of stoppages this year, he has just shat the bed. He's just butchered the ball, looks panicked when he's inside. He's lost everything that he had in his prime. So maybe, like you said, goes to a new environment and he can thrive and he can get back to that, especially if he's wearing orange. But GWS have been a club that's been good for that, like Jesse Hogan, Jake Stringer maybe to a lesser degree, but I think he could really go reinvent himself. And if I'm GWS, you back in your culture to take Clayton Oliver under your arm and get him back to being his best self.
Yeah, definitely turning into a misfit school up there. Yeah, I think he's still good at the first possession stuff, but it's kind of he's definitely lost I don't know, not that he was a pacey guy ever, but he's lost a bit of dynamism.
Yeah.
Takeoff or something.
He used to always be first to the ball. He'd have 40 disposals a game and just be untouchable. Inside 1-2s, a prime Will Ashcroft. But And could hit the scoreboard as well. He used to like be able to.
That's true.
Damage the scoreboard.
Big goal in the third quarter of that grand final too, which is the goal I think of when I think
he was
of Clayton
winning
Oliver.
all of those clearances.
Yeah.
And, they were going ham in there. It's such a shame with Clary, man. It just seems like sort of what led to his downfall was just vices, and now he's just trying to sort of find like outside of football. I just hope he can, get back to his best as a person.
I guess to finish off, well, at least all I had to say on this particular Melbourne thing was if they do hold another top 10 pick, let's call it pick 6 or 7 in this year's draft, the Melbourne Footy Club, who do you think they would draft?
Ooh, I didn't ill prepared for this one.
That's all right. I'll quickly say something while you think about it. Big footy rumour is they love Sullivan Roby. And whether pick 6 is enough at this point, but there could be like another team that targets West Coast
Is
pick
he a
2.
bit of a Petracca type, bro?
I was just about to say, there's your Petracca.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, so that one makes perfect sense off the cuff. Could see them going for like a Jevon, someone like that as well.
Okay.
That kind of mid forward, aerial threat. But yeah, no, Roby, I like that.
Yeah, that's who they're interested in. Well, according to Big Footy, big fat disclaimer on that.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon everybody's pretty interested in Sullivan Roby.
That's true. Yeah, Melbourne have shown a tendency to be really aggressive with the guys they like in the draft. Like they went a little bit early on Caleb Windsor and Colton Tholstrup. Both were sort of a little bit higher than the consensus rankings.
Yeah.
And they traded aggressively to get those picks. Like they moved 14, 27 and 35 to get up to 11. It was like a weird
Do you remember
thing.
them actually like it being reported that was definitely the guy that they were after?
No, I'm just sort of
But they
perceiving it that way.
postured, because I
Yeah.
remember last year it wasn't particularly clear who they wanted.
Yeah.
They were very keen on the draft. I feel like the Sullivan Roby one's interesting because like the big bolter last year was Alex Tyree, and everybody's hot on that guy.
Yeah, true.
Even though not everybody takes him.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like not everyone has the balls, I guess, but it's an interesting one. I reckon Roby's a good shout.
Yeah. Clayton Oliver was also the other biggest draft riser in the last decade that
Yeah,
they
it
refer
was.
to when they talk about Roby, and that was obviously a Melbourne selection. So that's quite funny.